Hey, what's up, everybody? So today we are going to talk about a functional medicine approach to women's health and our libidos. I'm Risa Morimoto, your host. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach, and you're watching Modern Aging, where we chat about innovative and holistic ways to elevate our health and well-being as we age. If you're new to the channel, I'd love for you to subscribe. All you got to do is click on that little red button below with that little bell next to it to be sure to be notified whenever a new episode is uploaded. If you give this video a little like, thumbs up, that would be awesome. That also helps the channel. Today, my guest is Dr. Renee Wellenstein. She is a conventional OB-Gyn turned functional medicine doctor. It was actually a personal accident that happened in 2012 that basically changed her whole trajectory of her career. Now, she helps women with their libidos through using functional medicine. You got to check it out. Dr. Wellenstein, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, this is really amazing because we're going to be talking about stuff we don't get to really talk about in public very often, and that's women's health and libidos. But you actually kind of have a circuitous route to kind of advising women on libidos. So why don't you kind of go back a little bit and tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. I am conventionally trained as an OB-Gyn. And so I always make that distinction right out of the gate because I have turned into the alternative world right now and practicing as such. But conventionally trained OB-Gyn, mom of twins, 13-year-old boy-girl twins now, married to a doc. And I was living the perfect life, so I thought. We moved to the country in central New York from a suburb of New York City. And I got a horse, and which was my dream, and I fell off that horse in 2012. And I always say that's where my story starts, because until then, I was on that trajectory of being an OB-Gyn until the day I retired. I almost said until the day I died. Until the day I retired. But with that injury came a lot of obstacles, the first of which was chronic back pain and a lot of weird medical symptoms. It was limiting my scope of practice in OB-Gyn. I couldn't operate or deliver anymore. And for about 2.5 years, again, I was chasing these weird symptoms. But as a conventionally trained OB-Gyn, I too, like my medical colleagues, was trying to shove myself in a diagnosis box. But with all my medical knowledge, what I was experiencing just wasn't fitting in a box. I tried, though. I definitely tried. So I shoved myself into the depression box first.
Well, what were your symptoms? What were you feeling that?
Low energy, no motivation. I really wanted to just sleep all the time, which was my biggest symptom was the energy issue. Like I'd wake up tired. I'd be tired all day, get a second wind towards bedtime, 10 o'clock, lots of cravings, weight gain, no libido. All I really honestly wanted to do was do my little bit at the hospital in the clinic and come home and lay down. And at this point, my kids were like 5. And so, I was looking at myself going, wow, what kind of mom am I? What kind of doctor am I? So my self-esteem was in the toilet. And I was kind of a hermit also. I wouldn't really want to leave my house because I live in a small town. Everyone knew what happened to me. So I had this shame about my situation. And the fact that, again, shoving myself into this box of depression because I didn't know what else to do. All I knew was I wanted to feel better. And I actually talked to my husband one night in bed, and I said, I can't go on living like this. Like, I cannot do this. And that was the only time in my life I would ever think of not continuing my life. I didn't have a plan, but that's how low I was, rock bottom.
And this was actually kind of a couple of years after your accident. This wasn't just immediately after.
No, this was 2 years when I flunked out of physical therapy. And what is happening in my medical world was nobody knew what to do for me because I didn't want the next best medication. I have lots of side effects to medications, including the depression meds that I was put on because I was so desperate to feel better that I said, this doesn't feel like what depression should feel like. But yes, I did. My life completely changed. So maybe it is. So give me those pills. And of course, what happens is I still felt awful. Still had all my symptoms, including the back pain, and I had all the side effects of the medication. So in that world, and I say that world, and I can say that because I was in that conventional medical world for 15 plus years, what happens is if you fail one medication, you try another. Because it's never we got the wrong diagnosis. It's we got the wrong medication or the medication's not working.
Right. It's a total, yeah, exactly.
So I tried my second medication and same exact thing happened. And that's when I sort of sat back and said, there's something else going on and nobody knows what's going on with me. So around the same time, I actually got put in contact with a functional medicine doc, and I didn't even know what a functional medicine doctor was. Like, I had no idea.
Which I think is crazy for someone who's gone to med school. And I know that that's so super common.
Yeah. And to this day, people don't know. I'm still explaining what I do. But back then, I met this doctor. I talked to her on the phone, and all within one conversation, she pretty much figured out what was going on with me based on my symptoms. Of course, we tested to make sure that she was correct. But, one conversation, figured out what was going on, introduced me to functional medicine. And
what
here I am.
ultimately was wrong?
Adrenal dysfunction. It was, adrenal fatigue is what we used to call it. It's kind of a coin term. It's not a real term, but essentially from my years of chronic stress, from medical school, residency, 15 years as an OB-Gyn, mothering twins in the middle of this, making a major, move, all the things. And then it all coming to a head by that fall off the horse. A lot of times adrenal dysfunction occurs either years of chronic stress and just one acute event. It could even be a death of a loved one or a divorce, but something traumatic happens and all of a sudden you crash. And that's what happened to me. And it was very interesting because, I didn't get better overnight. It took me a solid year and a half to get back on my feet, but I started to feel little by little better almost immediately. And what was I doing? I wasn't taking prescription medications. I was using some strategic supplements. I was changing my diet. I was trying to move my body a little bit more. And then I ultimately began working out and losing weight and all the things. But, that one phone call, I basically was like, when I looked at what functional medicine does, getting to the root cause, and the fact that this woman, just based on my symptoms, had an idea what was going on with me. When none of my medical colleagues knew, I was floored, and I said, I have to do this for the rest of my life. And that's exactly what I did. I went back and did a fellowship in functional medicine, finishing out my career as a conventional OB-GYN for about 6 months. But when I started to learn more and know better, I simply could not practice in that field anymore because I can't, with my degree and my oath, my Hippocratic oath and doing no harm, I do believe that some of these medications that I previously prescribed, unbeknownst to me back then, but now I can't prescribe anymore and actually sleep at night, that I'm not doing harm. So I had to completely leave conventional OB-GYN. And I joined my former doctor in practice for about 4+ years in an office.
And then I know you've kind of transitioned now, where you are focusing on women's health.
Correct. Yep.
And specifically libido issues. So how did that come about?
Yeah, so I was conventional OB for 15+ years, so just women. And then when I was in my functional medicine office for 4 years, I did dabble with men for a little bit. I took care of men, and it was interesting. It was really interesting to take care of men and just get that perspective from a man and hormonally what goes on with them, and hormonally when we replete hormones like testosterone, how much better they feel. So it was really an amazing experience. However, in 2018, that medical practice closed for financial reasons. So I do live in a small town in central New York, and this practice was in a larger city. But again, functional medicine is it takes a long time in this area, especially to kind of for the idea to catch on that this is what we do. We get to the root cause of why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And it's, oh, wait, you have to pay out of pocket and get reimbursed by insurance. That is completely foreign to a lot of people. But then again, how much time I spend with patients is just more time than I ever spent with a patient in my past. So what happened after that is for about a year, I was in limbo. I really didn't know how to do the doctor thing virtually online. And at the age of 45 then, I didn't really want to set up another medical practice and take that financial risk. And, and it's not as easy as it used to be in the olden days of just hanging your sign and grabbing a paper chart, not in New York State. You have to electronic medical record and all of the things. So it would have been a huge financial investment. And, so about a year of it being in limbo and really missing functional medicine and helping women, I actually figured out how to do the health thing online, which is what I'm doing now. and really helped women for a solid, not quite a year, maybe a year, with just general women's health issues, because I am the specialist. I still carry my board certification in OB-GYN and functional medicine. So I feel like I have the best of both worlds, both understanding the medical model as well as just the knowledge of a woman's body. However, last year in 2020 with the pandemic, the online healthcare world got really busy. And what I had to do is just step back and try to look at what niche of women is not getting served. What are we not talking about that more women need to be talking about, especially since everyone's all ears right now. And, gut health was being talked about, a lot of gut health because of the immune system, fatigue and energy and stress, all of that, all the stuff I love to talk about was being talked about. But I said, what is a topic in 20 years that nobody's talking about, but women have such a struggle with, and it's libido. And it's so interesting because when I started to talk about it, women came out of the wall. Like they were just like everywhere in my messages, like, oh my gosh, I thought it was normal not to have a libido after having kids, after going through menopause, during perimenopause.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. And when I said, no, it's not normal. You can have a great libido, and so as a matter of fact, a lot of women, when they enter menopause, it gets even better. And I said, there's no reason that, well, my doctor told me it was normal, or my doctor told me that, there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
And
why is that? Why are doctors saying that? Why are doctors even learning that?
It was just like me back, however, 10 years ago, where I didn't know what to do with that woman either, because there's really not a great medication that says, take this for your libido. For instance, men, much different hormonally. Everything's different with men. We're just completely different.
Have Viagra.
They have Viagra. Yep. I mean, quite frankly, with men is usually a low testosterone, replete that, all fixed. Or if it's a little more because of erectile dysfunction, Viagra, Cialis, boom. They have tried to come out with pills for women. They're just not working because we're a lot more complex. And right. I didn't understand this as an OB-GYN until I did my functional medicine training, to know that there are so many things that disrupt our hormones that regular docs just don't know about. I wasn't trained about toxins. I wasn't trained about the fact that, thyroid could hurt your sex drive. There was no training on adrenals and stress. Like, forget about it. Some docs are like, yeah, you're stressed. Well, what are we going to do about it? Put you on Xanax. Well, that's just going to make it worse. Right. Antidepressants, right. Anxiolytics, they make it worse. So, I just think because also we said it opens a big can of worms. Like, they just don't have the time to go down that rabbit hole of libido and try to figure out why a woman is feeling the way she's feeling.
I feel like a lot of times women are always shut down anyway, right? Yeah. So it's kind of just part of that same narrative about, women just need to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Women are, being psychotic because they're premenstrual, or they're being this because of their hormones or whatever. So we're not going to try to deal with it. But because even, perimenopause or menopause is not even discussed openly enough, I feel like, how many women have I talked to about this? And they're like, what? Even my sister, we were talking about how, I have these like achy joints and stuff. And I said, this is apparently a symptom of menopause. She's like, what? We're all so surprised because there's so much we don't know. We don't talk about. We don't talk about with our mothers or anything. And I think libido is even more so.
Very taboo topic because no one's talking about it. What women are thinking is that they're abnormal and that their friend over here is having a great libido and that other friend. So I'm not going to say it because it must be me. I must be broken. And meanwhile, it's that same concept, in my opinion, as an OB-GYN. Nobody talked about infertility or miscarriage because it was a very, I'm the only one that went through it. Versus if you start talking about it, the me too, you're like, oh, I had it too. I had it, it happened to me also, or I had problems getting pregnant as well. Same thing with libido. Same thing with menopause. You are correct. A lot of women think it's like I actually did contributed to some articles on this, how, even premature ovarian failure or premature menopause, women just don't want to admit it because they think it's it's taboo, number one, but it's going to make them less of a candidate for working, or it's going to take, not give them their edge or this or that. And it's completely false.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a great time to be changing that narrative, right? Mm-hmm. So tell me when women have low libidos, what is actually happening in our bodies that is causing that
It's complex. It's different for every woman, which is another reason I love functional medicine, is because we take a personalized approach. It's not the algorithmic, model of like, okay, go down this algorithm, follow this protocol and give this pill. It is, okay, let's talk about every aspect of your life. So what I find is that runs true for most of my clients is, number one, mindset. And what doctor talks about mindset, I don't know, but I do, because how we feel about ourselves. If you don't want to get naked in the bedroom in front of your partner, that might be a problem, and men are very visual. They want the lights on. If you're always wanting the lights off, there's a little disconnect between you and your partner. Relationship is huge. And a lot of people don't even want to address a relationship issue. Women, we need connection. We need to feel like we're understood. We need to feel appreciated. A lot during this pandemic, especially, a lot of women have been doing it all. They've been working. They've had to transition jobs maybe to home. Kids were virtual schooling, still doing it all too, with not getting a break during the day to do their work because the kids are home and now they're teachers, but they're also going to grocery shopping, making the meals, still cleaning the house, doing all of the things. And at the end of the day, they're just exhausted. And, I've had conversations with women where the husbands come in from a day of work, sit on the couch, pop on their phone. Meanwhile, they're making dinner. It's like, so like, there's been really blatant, like, I resent him. I don't like him. So are you really going to want to be intimate with him when you don't have that connection? Like, all you're thinking is how tired you are and how he does nothing and you do it all, which in some relationships is true. So my advice
I have
for
to
that.
say also, I'm assuming that this is also with lesbian couples.
Absolutely.
Well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There always tends to, I don't say every couple, there's not every couple, there's a disconnect, and there's like I don't want to say a hierarchy either, but there's definitely, I think that, if one of the partners gets out of the house, they don't understand really what's going on at home, especially if there's children involved, until that other is home. But I just think, opening up the communication. So here's the problem. There's a lack of communication generally. I always say they can't read your mind. You need to tell them what you want. And from there, if there's, not a reciprocation of like, okay, I'm going to help you do this because you need help, then there's an issue. There's a deeper issue we got to talk about. I'm not a relationship therapist at all. But I've done my own fair share of studying and my own relationship to know that, I'm telling you too, these little tweaks are just like these aha moments for these women that I work with. Like, oh yeah, I don't ask for what I want. Like, we think we're super women. I get it. I do that often. I think I can wake up and take on the day and do 50,000 things. But I also have come to recognize that I can ask for help and it's not going to make me a failure. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to get that trophy if I did 10 things or I only did 5 and I asked for help on the other 5. But what is going to change is I'm going to probably have a little more energy and a little more sanity at the end of the day. And potentially I'll actually be in the mood to be intimate with my partner and not just fall into bed at night. So those are two, I find, things that we constantly have to sort of tweak and look at. The third that is seeming to run through all is also stress. Stress is huge. And two things with stress. Number one, if a woman is up in her head with all the things that she's doing, she's shutting down her oxytocin. There's like a little teeter-totter with oxytocin. If your cortisol, which is our stress hormone, is high, the love hormone, cuddle hormone, oxytocin's low. And I always say the recommendation I give is give her a hug, cuddle, touch her, because if we can get her oxytocin to go up, her stress level will come down. She will automatically feel more relaxed. And, try the best your ability to get her out of her head as far as her to-do list. And that looks like maybe helping around the house, saying, what can I help make dinner? Can I go to the grocery store? Can I help the kids with homework? That's number one. But number two, when the stress is really high for a long period of time, you actually chemically, hormonally start stealing the precursors that make our hormones, our estrogen, our progesterone, our testosterone, all because it needs to make cortisol for our stress. So there is a very real hormonal reason why the libido will plummet. But there's also, women, we have parts of our brain that are larger than men's, especially the emotional part, and the communication part. And we internalize that stress and can't turn off our brains as easily as men.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. 100%. So what about women who have low libidos and are just like, I just don't have time, and it's fine. It's fine. Is it fine?
Well, there are a lot of benefits of sex, orgasm, sex. intimacy, connection. However, it's interesting when a woman says, well, how do I know what's low? My response to her is, if you are bothered by it, if it is where it's not where it used to be, but it bothers you, then it's low. For instance, I had a recent client who came to me with low libido, but once we worked together for a period of time and did get her feeling better, but she came to realize that it's not like it used to be, but her and her husband are on the same page and they're happy with where it is. And they're happy with potentially just cuddling and not necessarily having sex. And I think that's really important to recognize they had to communicate to talk about that, but coming to that realization that, oh gosh, it's okay that it's not 7 times a week like it used to be, or 5 times or 3 times or whatever. It's not necessarily about frequency. It's just about the satisfaction of where you want it to be.
That's great. And it's okay that as we get older as women that we do want it, and and that's fine
yes.
too. And we should want it. And it's funny, I interviewed my old boss who is 80 now, and she was actually single for 35 years and started dating at 77. And she's like, Risa, my libido is gone. She's like, it's still gone, but like, I don't know what happens. Like all of a sudden he starts touching me and whatever, and we have the best sex. I'm like, well, it's not gone is what it means,
Exactly. And there goes to show you, it's not necessarily, hormones for women. I mean, where it really plays a part in menopause is if it hurts. And there's definitely things that we can do to prevent that. And part of it is also, taking time, foreplay. Women need time to for instance, her case, they start touching, hugging, kissing, not just running to the bedroom, just having that time to warm up. And after a while, she's just like, oh, come on, stop waiting. Right. And that's how you want it to be. Not like, okay, we got 5 minutes, let's go. That's not how we do it. And it's no wonder that, a lot of women have a low libido, because that's the mentality of a lot of relationships. And, and again, menopause, as long as we can.
Social media feeds, right? It's like, let's go.
I know the attention, right? I got 5 minutes. Come on, let's go. And we're not having that. We literally need more than 5 minutes to get warmed up and get out of our head. So, those 3 are, I feel like they're hot topics for every single woman. Now, perimenopause, hormonal imbalance definitely can play a part. I always say estrogen's what makes us beautiful women. It keeps us, our above and below the neck, things nice and moist and plump. And however, too much of it makes us grumpy, irritable, moody. There's a lot of memes out there with perimenopausal women being grumpy, but it's very real. And a lot of times we cannot control it. We're nowhere being irrational and grumpy, but it's internal. We cannot control it. So, my biggest thing with that is helping women trying to not mask it. Don't put something on it like a birth control pill, because that's just going to make matters worse. It's twofold. It's really, let's try to get toxins out of our life that are actually acting like estrogen and making the case worse as far as our estrogen dominance. But number 2, let's try to make sure that our livers are working well, that we're breaking down the estrogens, our gut health is good. So there's more of a balance between the estrogen and progesterone.
What do you suggest for women who are actually having vaginal dryness or, just pain?
Yeah, well, jump on it right in the beginning. Don't wait. Especially if you're new to menopause, I am a firm believer in bioidentical hormone replacement, period. I love it, but I do find, and when I say bioidentical, it's identical to what our bodies make, not
So what is that even?
Well, there are some FDA approved, meaning medication you get in your pharmacy, like an estradiol and a progesterone, which is usually the name for that is prometrium. Those are natural estrogens. The only thing I don't love about the FDA approved, which is the ones you can get in your pharmacy and your doctor can write for you, is that you have to fit into a dose. And not everybody needs the fixed doses of hormones. And the other option is to have your doctor compound them. And generally when you compound it, they're generally in creams that you can apply and then titrate based on your symptoms and resolution of your symptoms, which in my opinion, that's what I always loved. However, I do know some women would want to go through their insurance and try to get as much covered as possible. The other interesting thing is a lot of insurance companies won't cover the more natural hormones because they're more expensive. They're much more expensive than the stuff that comes from a horse or that's completely made in a lab. So, and these are still made in a lab. It's not like they're extracted from our bodies, but they are molecularly exactly the same as what our bodies make.
So is this the same as hormone replacement therapy?
Yeah.
This is HRT, which you're talking
Yeah.
about.
And we call it BHRT because bioidentical. It's identical to what our bodies make. So there are options that your regular doctor, and I'm sure all gynecologists are aware of these, these more natural estradiol and progesterone. Whether they view them as more natural is a different thing. And if a woman doesn't want to go the hormone replacement route, she could do localized treatment with just vaginal moisturizers. There's lots out there. Or even, a recent client was like, she had this thing about using lube. She didn't want to use lube, but using lube actually always helped. I'm like, so what's the problem? Just use a lube, have fun with it. There's lots of fun lubes out there.
It's just because there's some sort of weird stigma or something?
Yeah, I guess so. That if you use lube, you're not lubricated enough naturally and there's something wrong with you. And I think that's totally false. I know a lot of people that use lube because they like it. They don't necessarily need it, but they like it. And there's a lot of fun things out there that people can use to help lubricate the area. And then, there's increasing phytoestrogens in your nutrition, isoflavones, the plant-based estrogens, which is a lot of controversy out there. And I've just kind of come to my resolution of how I feel. And I think they can be very helpful, especially for that woman that does not want the prescription hormone replacement.
This has just been so chock full of so many great tips and just things to really think about and takeaways. I think that it's so vital for us as women to really be open about these things. Even with some of my closest girlfriends, it's not things that we really openly talk about, right? Or if we do, it's kind of like in a joking way. It's never something that's serious, And so I'm hoping that those who are watching this can walk away and be like, what I'm feeling is an issue and I really need to address it, or, and not kind of shove it away.
Yeah.
Because
it's just sugarcoating. Just
Yeah.
talk about it a little bit. There's a lot more to it, but I find that I think your listeners and your viewers can actually take away a lot of pointers here and have some maybe aha moments like, oh, that might be what's going on with me, and help themselves.
So do you work with women one-on-one, or if people wanted to ask you questions, how do they reach you?
Yeah, I do work with women one-on-one. I have lots of resources. I'm all over all the social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I have a YouTube channel. I have a podcast. And I do have a free holistic health group on Facebook where it's my little container that's private for people that are women that are interested in holistic health topics and libido. And that's Happy, Healthy, Holistic with Dr. Renee. And across all social media, I'm Dr. Renee Wellenstein. And the podcast is Love the Leap with Dr. Renee. And my podcast, we talked about other holistic health topics aside from libido, because there's a lot that, in a lot of the topics we talk about, toxins and hormones can contribute to a low libido.